Thank you guys so much for being here. We're excited to be back. We had a 1 week break there because it was a really crazy start to the year for us. We had the flu. We had Christmas try to clean up, not clean up. We had a kid with a birthday party one day before we left for a week-long trip.
Ski trip
with 4 kids and a lot of gear to pack and just all of that. So it's been crazy, but we're back and we're excited to be back. And we got a lot. What?
I said, yep.
Are you excited to be back?
Yeah.
We got a lot of questions about the ski trip, just how we did it, like logistics, what we didn't share on social media, and just traveling with 4 little kids.
Yeah.
What the days look like, expectation management between us.
Couple parenting things.
Marriage, parenting, and then also like greater family, being on vacation with my family, with our children. No one in my family has children, so it's a little bit different with like my siblings not having kids, just being in a different season of life. So expectation management with all of that. So we thought we'd just talk about that. But of course, first we're going to start with the Connect card because you guys have been loving the Connect cards.
There's been quite a few comments and reviews coming in. It's really fun to see.
This one is, what is a strong memory from your childhood that really shaped you? Do you immediately think of a good memory or a bad memory?
Good memory.
Like, were you immediately fishing for a good memory?
Yeah.
Interesting.
What, you were fishing for a bad one?
No, just immediately my brain went to a bad one, but I think it's just because I've thought about and talked about it recently, and so it came to mind.
That could be true, yeah.
But I don't think I would have naturally gone there. Do you got one?
I mean, I've got hundreds, yeah, but one random one that popped in was there was this tree at the corner of the forest, and I remember I would always climb it, and it was for, I don't know why, it was this special tree. And what I'm thinking right now in my background of me sharing this thought is like, this is how communicating with kids is elevated, is when you can tap into your inner child or your memories of childhood. You know how to speak their language. So it's like when your kid cries or whines because you tell them they can't do something because it's genuinely inconsequential to everyone's life and situation, it's probably the most important thing in their life. And so, because I'm thinking to myself, I had this tree that was like extremely precious to me. Anything to do with this tree I just loved, and I built this one of my first tree forts in it. And I remember, like, I don't know, 9-10 years old, I built my own cable slide from one tree to the other. So I remember when I finally jumped from this tree on this homemade cable slide and I slid to anyways, it was a whole thing, but my immediate thing came up was this.
Was anyone watching you when you did that?
Yeah, I think Mueller's guy had to have been there.
So you were 9-10 with Mueller there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mitch might've been there or something, but like that memory just popped in my head of like, that was a big moment when I like trusted myself to do that. And, but anyways, the tree, in the background of my brain, I'm going on to something we're going to talk about later. I was just thinking like, gosh, that tree was so important to me, but it's like, it was inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. It was just very influential in a development period of me, in the same way a monster truck for Bodie might be an extremely developmental thing as he's looking at it on the windowsill, thinking about the mechanics of it. And then when you just tell him to put your toys away and do all this stuff, you're not talking on the same, it's true, he needs to put his toys away and he needs to obey, but like if you're not talking on the same frequency, it just gets missed. And that's where like communicating with kids is such an art, but because what they think, what's the most important thing in their world, you think is trash and throw it away or something. And adults have a very hard time like going back into their inner child language and being able to actually properly communicate is my thought. But
it's good.
Yeah, that was it. What about you?
Well, the first one what came to my mind immediately was a bad one, just because we've talked about it recently. And I feel like sometimes the bad ones actually stand out. Like then I was trying to rack my brain for another one, and maybe just because I was on that track, I just kept thinking of like bad ones that shaped me for the better. Like in hindsight, I think they were actually good. They were just hard experiences. But this one that came to mind was just we were talking about this and with my family on the ski trip. I went to ski camp
Oh, yeah.
with this group of girls for my ski team. It was like ski camp for my ski team. But I was by far the youngest girl there, probably by like at least 5 years. Everybody was a lot older than me. And they were so mean.
Yeah.
They bullied me and they were so mean. I was probably in 6th grade. So already like a hard, awkward time. And they were in high school.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm just there. And it was ski camp at this like, you know, it was ski camp, but it was like so janky. Like we stayed at the jankiest motel and it was brutal. Like we got up every morning and did dry land, ran, hiked, skied all morning, and then like did like a lot of physical activity. And then they were just like hardcore girls, you know, they were like baddie girls. And I was like goody two shoes, curly hair, sheltered, like child. It was just like such a
and
mix.
at that age too, 3 years makes a
6th grade,
huge difference.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't hit puberty, not even close to puberty. I was a full lifetime from puberty. And so it was just really hard. They were super mean. They like teased me. I mean, they like bullied me pretty much. And it was awful. I hated it. My dad made me go. I don't even know why, but I remember coming home and just like, it was awful. But I do think that it really shaped me because I had kind of a lot of experiences like that where I was put in groups of people. Like I was not a cool kid. I was a very dorky kid. And I was very, like, I was raised in kind of a sheltered conservative Christian home. Not like extremely so, but definitely more leaning that way than the other way. And I was just a redhead, you know, which as a kid, like is
curly, frizzy, braces,
not
redhead.
to like woe is me or anything, but all of that. And I was small and I was not like really good at I didn't do the normal sports and things that kids did.
Yeah, you were like
I
dance and ski
was a dancer
and swim.
and I did swim team and then I did skiing. And so I did these other and so like I didn't have that. And so I think it really shaped me because it gave me just honestly like tough skin from a young age. I think that has continued to be, you know, a thing for me into my adult life. Like I just have been in these situations where my skin has been built up, and that the next immediate one that I thought of, the next story that I thought of when I was trying to think of something else, was like, I was just thinking about my childhood as a kid, like growing up, my neighborhood, what I did and the things that shaped me. And we didn't have a farm like you. I didn't have this dream. I mean, I had a good, amazing childhood for what it was, but I didn't have a farm. But we had this wetland area in our neighborhood that was this massive wetland area, and it was like our farm. So all the neighborhood kids, I lived in a circle neighborhood, and so all the neighborhood kids, and there was a lot of kids in our neighborhood, went to this wetlands area, and we like built forts in the summer and rode our bikes there and whatever. And it was like our farm, right? Because it was just, it was no man's land. But all the older kids in our neighborhood were also kind of like rude and mean and bullying, and they would build forts and say that we couldn't go in there, right? And I remember as a kid, like I was an oldest child, and so like standing up for my younger siblings, and I was kind of in the middle of the neighborhood kids, so I wasn't the youngest, but I wasn't the oldest. And I remember like going to bat for all of like the younger kids against like these older kids, and like fighting against them for like,
for justice.
You don't, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I already kind of had that in my personality, but I think like those two moments like kind of, or those two memories kind of intertwined in the sense that like, I think it made me just like be willing to go to bat for things. And I think it gave me thick enough skin to be able to like stand up for things and against things and people, and definitely like standing up for the underdogs and like standing up for people that don't have people to stand up for them, or don't have that thick skin, or don't have that
DNA strand.
Yeah, ability to voice what they need to voice it, but like want someone to voice it for them, or need help in that. Anyways. And I think that has become a huge part of then my personality and character. Like in the life. Anyways.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, that's a Connect card for today.
And just for the next card, just to read one, just so people get further taste, is like,
one random in there.
Tell me a story about something that changed the trajectory of your life. That's another great, on the same vein of what we're talking about, but different question. Anyways.
I like that. Gosh, it's like there's so many different seasons of life to think about how you could answer that question.
I know.
So ski trip, how was it for you?
Yeah, I mean,
We almost didn't go.
We almost didn't go. That was the first hurdle to get over. Is like, does this make sense to do still? Because you and the kids were all sick, and I survived without getting sick, but it was still exhausting, and like nothing was packed a day before.
And we had Bodie's birthday.
And it was just like, are we just doing another Roloff thing, or is this like too much, But we talked through it, and we decided, no, actually this, sure, it'd be great to stay home and sleep, but will we actually do that? Probably not. So like we went and we decided to go, and I'm glad we did. Yeah, it was a great trip.
Yeah. So just for context, in case people don't know, we went on a ski vacation with my family, so my parents and my siblings, and there's a cat locked in the shop. No. And my brother's wife, my brother just recently got married, so his wife came, and then my sister and her boyfriend, who we got to meet for the first time, and then all of our kids. So
give a little context on your family, though,
yes.
Skiing and stuff.
So my family, I grew up not really vacationing. Like, we didn't do vacations growing up. We did sports. And any vacation that we went on was typically for sport, like traveling for a sport event or thing. Like someone qualified for nationals, or someone qualified to go to some track meet or ski race or swim meet or whatever in a different state. And so then our whole family would go to like support that person. And so skiing was the thing that we did as a family growing up the most together, because as little kids, like we all learned to ski when we were really little. My dad took me up when I was like 2, 3. So I was the oldest child and learned really, really young. My siblings all learned really, really young. And my parents would take us every weekend up to Mount Hood in the winter as little kids. And then as we got older, my parents ended up, like when I was maybe 10, buying a house, like a cabin in Central Oregon, close to the mountain that we ended up doing like ski team and stuff for over there. And we went every single weekend. And so like middle school through high school, literally from November to May, we went to Bend, which is where Jeremy and I lived before we moved back here, every single weekend to ski. And once we had all started like ski teams. So my siblings got like super, super serious into it. At that time, I was kind of like, I was the first kid to do it. So I was the guinea pig. And so I was not the best. Like my siblings got to be much better than me. And I also didn't do it as long because I got super into running like at the same time, and then I was really good at that. And then
but you all did it. You all did ski.
So we all did it, and it was a huge part of our life, skiing as a family together, but then also racing once we got into that competitively, and then traveling for ski races, but then also traveling for ski vacations. So my family and I were joking, like the last time we went on a vacation together was actually like 2 decades ago, and it was a ski trip that we took when me and my siblings were little kids, and it was at a ski in ski out resort in Colorado, and my family took us there. Well, I think my brother was 5. We did that trip actually 2 different times. The first time my brother was really little, but the second time my brother was like 5, and so we were all like cruising the mountain. My parents put us in ski school and everything there too.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny, like full circle moment, because we're here on this ski trip now with my parents and with our own kids, and we're putting them in ski school. And so we're kind of now on the other. But so that is the context. Is like my family's really big skiers. My brother like trained for the Olympic ski team. One of his best friends is on the U.S. Olympic ski team. So for context, like a lot of people were messaging us like, how do you do a ski trip like this? I'd love to do this. Like, I think it's already really, really difficult, but it'd be even more difficult if you didn't have like extreme skiing background, like in
or just even know like the language and like where to go and what to do and why and how and all.
And
be
really competent on your skis, like
it's just really hard to
train. Both parents, not just one. Like you have to really have both parents. So we'll kind of walk through like our days and how we did it, just the logistics of it all and scheduling.
Yeah, but
that's the context of why.
Yeah.
We went on the trip.
Yeah. And it's interesting for me too, because like my family, we didn't do any of that. I think, and what I mean is like we didn't do sports.
Like a family activity together.
Family activities. It was always the farm. Mm-hmm. And it made sense because like my dad couldn't do it. My mom and dad didn't and couldn't do any of that. And we weren't very integrated into the community because they both moved here, one from California, one from Michigan. Yeah. They 2 years, but whatever, 3 years before they had us. And then 10 years later, the show started, and that was kind of a further isolating experience. But so it's been interesting, even just teaching the boys how to play like catch and stuff. It's just we just didn't do sports as my family at all. It wasn't a thing. I wrestled for a little bit, and then I loved soccer, so my mom supported that and helped that. But yeah, it's funny.
And like some further context is like we're probably the most extremely different in terms of like our dads. So like you say like I didn't like do sports, I didn't, you know, play catch with my dad, whatever. But like my dad is like the most sports guy that you will ever meet.
No.
Like, yeah, he knows everything. He follows high school sports, college sports, professional sports. He follows every single sport: football, basketball, ski racing, track, soccer. Not really soccer, actually.
Yeah, no.
But like swimming. But I mean, he literally knows about every single up and coming college athlete, professional athlete. He knows about all of them.
That's
he
true.
reads sports. It literally is like he's
got
amazing at it.
weird,
I don't know anybody like him.
A weird mind for that.
And so we as kids, like he is like that. And so, you know, everything that comes with that versus like your dad probably not that into sports, maybe watching, you know, the 49ers or whatever, because he's from San Francisco, but like not really super into sports and certainly not into like doing them with you or forcing you to do them.
Yeah, no, there's other stuff we did.
Yeah.
Camping and all that.
We grew up very, very different in that regard. But anyways, we decided to go on this trip. And packing so this was our first time actually traveling with all 4 kids. We haven't been on a plane yet since we had Mira. And this is a short flight. So from Portland to Salt Lake City, which is where you fly into to ski in Utah, it's about an hour and 15-minute flight.
Yeah, something like that.
And then an hour drive from Salt Lake City up into the mountains. And so it was a pretty, like, we weren't too stressed about the flight just because it's a pretty short flight. Yeah. We weren't all sitting together, but it like worked out fine. Mirabella's a lap infant and actually did sleep the whole way on the first flight. And our older 2 kids, it's kind of a sweet spot right now because I always say like traveling with a 12-month, 15-month-old to a 2-year-old is the hardest time, like for flying.
Because they just want to move.
They're so busy and they can't be entertained by like something for too long. Like they don't want to sit in color or watch a show.
Or look at your hands and chew on them. Like.
Right. Or nurse and fall asleep. Like that's the hardest time. So while we have 4 kids, I actually do feel like we were talking with my family, will we do this trip again? And I'm like, we will not do this trip next year because it'll be harder in some sense. Like right now it's like I'm nursing Mira and I have to be with her and like all this stuff. But like next year will be even harder because she'll be running around everywhere.
We'll go to the cabin in Sun River next year.
Yeah. So anyways, let's just talk about the gear, packing, and going, and how.
You guys should have seen our playroom upstairs. It's just like rows of this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid, and you know the suitcases are gonna go in, and but then they're coming in and like trying on gloves and walking off with them, and you're like, gosh, no, like. Gloves have to stay. Everything has to stay here. Get out of the room.
It took days to pack for this trip because you're not going.
Well, we didn't
packing
have
to
days.
go on a
we had
beach
2
vacation.
days. We did it in 2 days. Yeah.
It's like the gear. There's so much gear, and not only that, we didn't have gear that fit all the kids before the trip. So we're like on Facebook Marketplace. Jared's driving like an hour to like Northeast Portland to go pick up ski boots that fit Ember because turns out hers don't fit. And find what else did we have to find? Last minute.
Yeah, and you're still recovering from being sick, you know. So it was so getting the gear all sorted out was definitely a trip.
And we got all of it sorted out before we went, right? We didn't have to buy anything there except for poles for Ember that she didn't even end up using.
Yeah.
But so yeah, packing to go on this trip, like guys, the amount of gear. I've never traveled with so much gear, and I actually feel like we did a pretty good job packing for this trip. Yeah, like everything that we brought, I feel like we used. Lists.
I
have to tell you guys though, my biggest pet peeve, one of my biggest pet peeves with Jeremy. Have I said this on the podcast before?
No, I'm excited to hear it.
Is when we're packing to go anywhere as a family, and Jeremy is like, yes, it's his way of like asking advice for what to pack. But instead he'll be like, I don't know if I should bring like this shirt or that shirt. Like it's some like dumb thing, like a shirt that literally is the last thing I could care about what shirt he brings.
No, it's
Meanwhile,
not.
I'm
But it's not
thinking
the
about
shirt.
packing
it's like coats. It's
everything for literally everybody else, our entire family. And Jeremy only has to pack for himself whenever we go anywhere. He never has to pack for anyone else.
I mean, I did a lot of the gear.
And it's one of my biggest pet. It's like 1 a.m., you
stuff.
know, when you're still packing and you have an early flight in the morning. And Jeremy's like, so should I bring my Filson shirt? And he's just like, Please, just like don't ask me that. It's literally one of my biggest pet peeves. But
it's not as bad as, I don't know if it's bad as.
Oh, I never respond. Have I ever responded?
No, but that's just me just like
I'm
trying
so
to
stressed
verbally
and frustrated.
process. Like, geez, like, would this be, if I'm bringing one coat, like, would this be better or this be better? I'm trying to think here. But.
Yeah, and you do that. You repeat it. You're like, should I bring this coat? And I'm like, you got to decide for yourself what you want for yourself.
Well, good job packing. You did great.
Anyways, we had 2 massive luggages. Then we had 2 massive rolling check bags that we put one of them was like my stuff and Mirabella's stuff, like sleep sack, sound machine, and kind of like group kid stuff, like toilet liquid stuff that need to get checked. The other bag was all of the kids' ski stuff.
Yep.
And all the kids' clothing and sleep stuff and everything.
Two boot bags.
2 boot bags, which we stuffed their helmets,
boots,
of them, right?
gear,
and
all that stuff.
All of our boots and all of our ski stuff. And then one little bag that you.
And then the giant ski bag that had all the skis, coats, and
5 pairs of skis
diapers.
And one giant. What is that ski bag? Double ski bag?
No, it's just a 190.
I know, but what do they advertise it for? How many skis?
2 skis.
The guy said it was the most heaviest ski bag that you've ever lifted.
Yeah. I packed it full.
We look hilarious walking through the Portland airport.
Oh, with 4 kids. Yeah.
Like,
that was
so many people are just like walking by like.
That was one thing about this trip too, is like even walking down Park City and stuff, people.
And we had a stroller.
Yeah, they it's not really a trip you do with kids this age.
It's absolutely not.
So there were several people that were like, 2 we overheard, and several we were just talking in conversation, like, where's the nanny? We're like, oh, we didn't bring a nanny. I mean, we have grandparents here, which is helpful, whatnot, but like they're here to ski as well.
Totally.
But we didn't bring a nanny, which, typically when you're going on a trip like this, people would do. And I still think like, man, it would be very helpful if we did with kids this young. So I don't know if we're going to do another trip like that until the kids are a bit older and can, nap in the room or hang out and do something,
We've never brought a nanny on a trip.
No, we never have. Yeah.
Or a babysitter.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice. But
one time we brought my sister on that Young Living work trip.
Oh yeah.
Because we had to have her watch Mira because I couldn't bring her to the gala.
Yeah.
And that went horribly awry.
Yeah.
My sister, who's not a baby person and not really a.
Yeah, one of our friends ended up watching the baby.
Loves our kids as they get older, but she's just like the baby phase. Anyways, we were quite the spectacle at the airport. Just a lot of gear and a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Got through the flight.
So
got there.
But traveling with kids, we found like, and this is probably an obvious statement, but like communication is so paramount, especially if a kid like wants to know things. Like Ember's always asking like, what's for breakfast tomorrow? She just wants to have this calendar. She's at the age where time is starting to like integrate into the way she operates in the world. And so like tomorrow actually means something to her now. And her past actually has memories that she's recalling now. And so she's starting to find her place in time. But, so we, for the 2 dinners of the 2 nights that we knew we were going on this trip, we were just laying out like just on repeat what the process is. We're flying. We
constantly
do you guys know? Yeah. Do you guys know this is what we're doing? Okay, great. You have any questions about it? Okay, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be, can you hold up 3 fingers? Yes. Step 1, step 2, and step 3. Exactly. This is what step 1 is, step 2 is, step 3 is. You can do this, movie on the plane or whatever, if you can do this, on step 2. And so just this community, so that way, like they're prepped for it, and they know when they're about to scream because of whatever fell on the ground. We can say, hey, step 2 is coming up. We're almost done with step 2. And so there's just a way to like bring them into the process, because kids don't know about time. Time isn't a thing. And so like to say, we're going to be late, we're going to miss our flight, that doesn't mean anything to them. They're literally learning what that means by us yelling at them about it. And so any way you can like bring time into their purview, because again, time is taught, back to the past episode, time isn't this normal, known thing. We learn it through our experience here. But
yeah.
So yeah, that was a very helpful.
We don't actually say step 2 is coming, but we do that a lot.
Whatever
with our
step
kids.
2 is,
right?
And we
tell them what's coming.
But they know there's a sequence of rollout events, and that helps them integrate into the process, so that when the team language comes up, like, hey, team roll off, and then they're on the plane, they can look at me and I can go, we're landing in 2 hours. You know what that means? They go, the 1 hour ride. I'm like, yes, the 1 hour ride. It's kind of stuff, like that kind of language where it's like, okay, now because they know they're on a team. Well, what's the team doing? They actually have mental steps for what that might be.
And I do feel like it's interesting. I was thinking about this actually when we were at the airport, because there's like a lot of other families traveling with kids. I never saw anyone traveling with as many kids as us when we traveled on this specific trip. But I did see other families traveling with like 3 kids or 2 kids or young kids, you know. And I feel like I don't hear other families doing that with their kids. Like, I feel like we are out audibly doing that with our kids in public often.
Yeah, that's probably a weird thing about us.
Is that weird?
Maybe, yeah. We'll
Like,
ask you guys. Let us know below. Are we just weird?
Sometimes I'm like, well, looking at these other people in the airport, I'm like, they're not like prepping their kids for what's coming. Why aren't they prepping their kids for what's coming? Yeah. They're about to get on this flight too. Like, what, you know? I don't know. I do feel like we do that, and maybe is it kind of out of like our own.
But our kids, I feel like they need it because we do it because it seems to work. Because we're trying to solve a problem, and that problem is a kid getting lost in chaos because they don't have a grounding to like what's happening.
Yeah, or a kid losing it.
Yeah, so we've chosen to do that route, and it seems to work pretty well. But
and like, let me just say, because maybe it needs to be said, like, you know, I posted a lot about this trip on social media. I posted way more than I posted on social media in a long time. Like, I just kind of like shared a lot of the trip, and obviously, I'm not going to share like our kids having meltdowns, which they certainly did. You know, all of them. Okay, not just the
let's
toddler.
harp on that for a second. This is a hard trip.
Yeah, and our kids. Now, I'll also say our kids did great. Like, given what we put them up against, or given what they did, and like what we did, they did fantastic. But also, like, we definitely pushed them, and so like, we had to give them a lot of grace for the moments and meltdowns that they had, which were kind of inevitable given what we were doing, what we were taking on. Like, we had to know that those were coming for us and not be like too hard on them because of what we were signing them up for. Because they did, the older 3, ski school, you know, they all day from 9 o'clock till 3:45, no nap for Radley 3 days in a row. And he's a 2-hour napper still every day. So no nap. I mean, they have like these cots in there and they have like a movie on and they say they can sleep, but like no way is he going to do that.
They don't, yeah.
So 3 days in a row, the older 2 skiing all day with like a lunch break and hot chocolate break. So they're like, you know, lots of activity. We're also staying at 8,000 feet elevation. So that's like a change for their body. And then we're going out to like nice dinners with my family in Park City and at the restaurant at the hotel that we're staying at. And so then there's this expectation of the kids to sit at dinner for an hour to an hour and a half while we're all like talking with my family and my siblings that I don't get to see very often, my sister's boyfriend that we never met before. And like, so there's a lot of expectations for our kids.
Totally.
Like, and they're doing something new. They're learning a new skill and they're in a new place.
Exhausted.
They don't sleep as good the first couple nights. So they're even more tired from that. So there's a lot, you know, and we had to give them a lot of grace, and we had to also like give ourselves grace that like, hey, because I know a lot of times you and I are like, we toggle back and forth between like the parent that's the one that's like laying down the law, right? And then the other parent plays the like, well, it's okay, give them grace or all, right? Like we kind of like,
we
good cop, bad cop that a little bit.
Tug of war that pretty good.
Like we balance each other out in it, I think, well in certain moments and instances. But I think there was a lot of times on this trip where like we definitely were like rushing our kids, like rushing to the airport, we're rushing to the hotel. Okay, now we have to rush to dinner. Okay, now we have to rush to bed through bedtime because we rushed.
It's 10 p.m.
Because it's late and we have to get up for ski school in the morning. Okay, now we're rushing to the shuttle because we got to make the shuttle. And then we're rushing to get our stuff on and then to ski school and then rushing to pick them up in time to make it in time for the shuttle for dinner.
Which I go back and forth on, you know, like I don't like all the rushing.
No, like
it's definitely but you have to do that to make something like this happen.
So you kind of have to embrace that. Like, that's exactly what I'm saying though, babe, is like, we typically don't want to live our life that way with our kids. Like we want to, you know, go back a few podcast episodes and listen to the one that we did with Habits of the Household, Justin Early, like that. We talked about transitions with the kids and like not rushing and basically how rushing is like horrible for kids, right?
Yeah.
Which we know. And so I think it gives Jeremy and I angst
when we're doing it.
And so we try to not do it, or we try to like make it feel like we're not doing it, but we have to do it, instead of just realizing like this is a moment where we have to do it. You know, like because we're doing something outside of, this is not our daily life, right? We're doing something outside of our daily life, and therefore like it requires different than daily life stuff.
Yeah.
Different than daily life parenting. And so,
and there's the law of correspondence, like there's a trade-off to everything, and we could not do anything that would require rushing.
Right.
But
I don't just choose that always slow life.
I don't think that's the goal either, though.
Sorry.
Well, no, I just can't see your face.
Totally.
That's not the goal either. Is to, I don't necessarily want to live a life so slowed down and boring that like there's no need to ever rush. But I do want to live my life in a way where my natural heartbeat, my natural default is slow pace, but I'm able to ramp up for moments to live the life that you slide into the grave with skid marks, like, so, but you don't want to, but you don't want to live up here. And that's just what and what you're always fighting this battle of like hurrying through time. You know what I mean? So it's definitely the dance, but.
And I feel like that does give you more angst than me, would you say?
Oh yeah, totally.
You're more sensitive to it because you didn't grow up rushing through life. Like,
yeah, well, no,
like
but
I was just an overcommitted
I grew up
child. I did
rushing to a lot of things. Like we were late almost every morning to school, almost every morning, my entire life.
But were you late because you weren't rushing?
Well, no, I remember my mom was yelling and rushing.
She was? Okay.
Yeah, it was, get out, we got to get out. But it was also very much like, oh, look at the time, we got to go. We weren't rushing.
Yeah. See, I feel like it was a little more casual. It's just different.
Yeah.
But you weren't like, you guys growing up weren't overcommitted in the sense where it's like you get home from school, you're going to from one sport to the next sport to a family dinner, then you got to get back. Your parents have to stop at the grocery store because they're hosting Bible study at their house.
No,
and then
opposite
like,
to you guys. Yeah. Like you guys were very.
So there was like, I think you get frustrated with me because I am actually I can execute the rushing well. I don't want to say good at the rushing because I don't think it's a good thing necessarily, but I can execute it well. Like I can get the kids out of their ski stuff, dressed for dinner and ready to go to the shuttle in 15 minutes by myself and get myself ready in 2 minutes. But
the problem with that though is can I.
Chaos.
Easily.
Yeah.
So, but this is where it cuts through something to even like even deeper than that, because we both have executed that well. Like, right, when I watch the kids, it's like, it goes great. And we're to everything.
Doing it, yeah.
I'm naturally on time to everything if left to my own devices.
Yeah.
It's when this is part of the marriage working out is it's
who's doing what
upon integration.
Yeah.
The role delegation is where I think some of the breakdown happens.
Yeah. And sometimes almost gets harder.
And it gets
when
harder
you're rushed.
Because if clarity and roles if there's any assumptions, then those are just lost in the ether. They're things that weren't written on the right whiteboard and assigned to someone to do.
Yeah.
Which is why you're supposed to always, pick up the slack and do all the stuff. But like that's fluffy language for people who think they have it all figured out. Like that's where our breakdown typically happens, is when unassigned things or the lack of proper delegation between us gets kind of unpinned to either you or me and just left on the whiteboard. But
yeah. And really, I feel like it's not as like this entire trip, like Jeremy and I had to communicate. That is what made it successful. It's successful. Like our communication of like, okay, just constantly talking about the temperament of our kids. Should we do this? Should we not? Who's going to do what? What do you think is going to be best for my family? Who hasn't done this yet? Who needs to take care of whatever? Like the enjoyment of the trip kind of hinged on our ability to communicate like what was going to be the best thing for our family and on a regular basis, on an hour to hour basis. Not like we sat down, Jeremy and I didn't sit down before the trip and say, you're doing this and I'm doing that. This is how it's going to go. It's literally just this constant dialogue of honesty and of there was a point in the trip where like, instead of just letting it go unsaid, I said to Jeremy, like, we did the whole like ski school kind of like chaos for the first 3 days. Jeremy and I tag team watching Mirabella. So basically like we geared all the kids up, dropped them off at ski school. together with Mirabella in the front carrying pack, go down to the shuttle, get on the shuttle with all the kids in their ski gear on, drive the 10-minute shuttle over to the main lodge where we drop them all off at their different ski school classes, which is already hard. Like, they're walking in ski boots, and we're like trying to get them to where they need to be, and then on time, all at the same time. And I've got Mira. And then once we do that, we take the shuttle back.
Yeah.
And then by the time we take the shuttle back, it's like Mirabella needs to go be fed and get put down for a nap. So we need to go back to the room. And then Jeremy went to get his ski stuff on to go ski typically. And I would like feed Mira and put her to bed. Or sometimes I'd feed Mira and put her to bed and I would go ski. We kind of took turns doing that.
Yeah.
And then whenever Mira woke up, I'd come in, feed her, and we'd switch.
All right.
Do you need an answer?
Nope.
Okay.
I would have.
Anyways, whenever Mira woke up, we'd come in and switch. And then at the end of the day, my mom would come, and because my mom didn't ski all day, because my mom doesn't ski all day, and she's had some injuries and hasn't skied that much in the past couple of years. So she typically skied like half day, but she's also like not just like signed up in there to be our babysitter. Like, she's very much there to enjoy the trip. Like, my parents, like, you know, and spend time with my brother and my sister and all of them. Like, she wants to just go sit in the lodge and you know, have happy hour with them, like, when she's done skiing and all of that. So, like, it's not like my mom was our babysitter by any means, but she definitely also helped. And so she would come at the end of the day and watch the kids so that Jeremy and I could go and ski over to pick up the kids from ski school. Some days we shuttled. Some days we skied.
Yeah.
Pick them up from ski school and ski the older two back because they wanted to ski like a couple runs with us, but the mountain closes like 15 to 30 minutes after their ski school pickup time.
Yeah, so I would usually take
like
Rad.
There.
2 of the days I took Rad on the shuttle back, but yeah, you ski.
Anyways, you see how complicated it is, right? Like, Jeremy and I are constantly communicating.
It was a
all
logistical feat.
Yeah.
Is what it
and
was,
then like my mom would be there with Mira and we'd both get back and like then she would leave to go get ready for dinner and we would like strip the kids down from their ski stuff, put their dinner clothes on and then try to make it down in time for the dinner shuttle and they're exhausted wipe and then we sit at the dinner table for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And hope that they don't have meltdowns and bring lots of coloring stuff and and just we bite our tongues when they're on the floor.
I think it was the last
picking up their stuffed
animals.
Third
ski day, the last ski day, we did the movie on the iPad at the restaurant. But the other days we just let them play, you know, with their trucks or whatever. But
yeah, and they did great. I don't know how we got on that. The point of it was just to paint the bigger picture of like it is constant communication between Jeremy and I all day long to figure out how to do this and adjust the plan as needed. Like, and I will say this too because I got some questions about this, like when it comes to vacationing with your family and managing those expectations. And Jeremy and I did talk about this before, like. My siblings are in a very different season of life as me. They like to do things that are kind of lavish. They don't have kids, so they spend their money on themselves. And they like to go to they're all foodies. And my sister's a sommelier and my dad's a sommelier. And they're really into wine. And they want to go to the fancy restaurants and do all that stuff. And I had to kind of like tell my family, or early on, I did tell my mom, I was like, Mom, we can commit to one dinner.
Yep.
And like, that was get us on the reservation for the one dinner and we will play it by ear for the rest.
I'm going to say that was kind of pressured by me too. I said, tell your family we are committing to one dinner. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm willing to commit to because I know how chaos this is going to be and I will not, we won't commit to another. So commit to one. If we do make 2, amazing. If we make more, what a blessed trip. Yeah.
So we had that one that we knew we committed to, but then the first night we got there and it's literally just like a temperament of the kids, like, and of us, like, okay. And the plan for tomorrow, like, can we do this? And so the first night was just dinner in the lodge, like at where we were staying,
which is great,
which was the easiest thing for us to do anyways. And so they were already there. And so we did it, but the food took forever. It ended up being like an hour and a half long dinner and the kids were up late and there was a little bit of a time change. So, but they did fine and they managed and it was an easy out because we could just slip up to my room, leave if they're still eating, you know, square up with my dad later and get the kids to bed, like leave. We didn't have to shuttle anywhere or you know what I mean? So that was like easy and it worked out. And then the next night was the night that we had planned to go to dinner, but we ended up going to dinner with them all but one night.
Yeah, I think so. But so communication between us is paramount, but then communication with your family. But also this was a trip with your family. And so there was...
So we wanted to spend time with them.
And you're a ski family. And so like that one day you
Oh, yeah.
communicated wanting to go out and ski because you never get to do this. So I watched the kids for the entire 4th or 5th day while you went out and basically took my slot and skied with your siblings and you had a great time and all that.
Half day.
Yeah, because it's like, it's one of those things
where
where
a half day ticket because they're outrageously expensive.
Yeah, but like I go on a fishing trip every year, and so like I get my
and a hunting trip and other trips.
I get my time to do that, and so I'm glad you communicated that with me.
I basically told her, I was like, look, I've been pregnant and nursing babies a lot for the past 7 years, and there's been like last year I didn't ski once. There's been a lot of years where I haven't skied at all, and it has been so many years since I've been, this might be the last time I ever ski with my mom. I don't know. And like, it's the first time I've ever skied with my whole family in a decade. And so I just basically told her, like, instead of like harboring that bitterness of like, I'm stuck in the room with the baby because I have to nurse the baby and I have to be with her and, Jeremy's out skiing with my family or like whatever, instead of letting that build or a narrative build in my head, I just told him straight up. I was like, can I do this? Maybe this is selfish of me to ask, but like, I really want to go ski with my family today and spend the afternoon doing that. Can I do that? Are you willing to do? And he was totally understood.
Yeah. Well, it's
was
a
like, yes,
fair ask because of the way we dance through those moments.
But I think you have to do that. Like if you're on vacation with kids, it's hard, or this is why everyone says like it's not vacations, it's trips, because you have to manage your expectations. Not that it's not going to be fun and like you're going to have vacation type feelings and moments and things together, but it's not, you have to manage those expectations.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would just be not fun.
Yeah. And like we have this whole thing of expectation management. And if I were to break that down in a phrase, it would be expectations are premeditated disappointments. So it's like,
that sounds so like gloom, but
they are though. If you are expecting an outcome, but that outcome is just either thrown out into the ether and never worked towards or communicated towards, it's going to remain just a degree of hopium, really. Just like, wow, like for example, if you wanted to get a ski day in and we do this entire trip and that was your biggest expectation, but you never you might have easily gone home without ever getting a ski day in, and then it would have been a disappointment, a premeditated disappointment. And so it's a negative phrase because in my opinion, to expect is decently not negative, but like it carries an irrational level of hopium unless there is not communication isn't the right word, unless there's energy put into making it actually reality or happen. And it's okay to expect it's okay to like have a healthy vision for the future, right? And count, like for example, promises of God. Like it's okay to expect these things to happen, but like in the scenario the context in which we're talking about within marriage, I think that happens way, 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 way too much for a lot of people.
Yeah.
My
and
opinion.
With little kids. Traveling with little kids, like you just have to do it. You have to do it because, and I think a lot of people reminded us of this too on the trip, verbally, strangers and people that, online because of me sharing that like, this is the time, this is the hardest time. Like the time that we're in is the hardest time. And it's not always going to be the hardest time.
I ran into a few people that are also saying these are the days. Like
these are the days, but like what you're doing right now with this many little kids, it's the hardest time to ever do it. And like we have friends, like we're really blessed to have friends that are in a very clear season of life ahead of us where their youngest is the same age or older than our oldest. And it's just so different. Like they operate so different. It's not as hard as it is right now forever, And so I think we have to keep that perspective too, instead of being like gloom of like, oh, we can't do this on this trip or we can't do that. Just knowing that like there's going to be plenty more things ahead that we get to do as a family, or we will get to do that. And like, it's just not now. And like now we need to still be nap trapped, and now we need to still be back at least within an hour and a half of bedtime and stuff like that. But
communication is king. We always say it. The quality of communication is the quality of the relationship. Like a stranger is only a stranger because there's never been, you don't know they exist until you know they exist. And then if your communication is a cold shoulder, like that's the relationship, you know what I mean? But if it's a conversation or even a dollar or whatever, like that's communication for the relationship. And so shameless plug for the Marriage Journal. We have been literally practicing communication for 10 years, and it's just the best tool to do it. It's simple. It's easy. Do it once a week. And then, but when you've done it and you know each other's communication styles, you do it kind of for maintenance, but like all of the lessons you've learned of how each other communicates and how we tell stories and what your fears are and my joys are and all this other stuff, it just becomes an easy thing to do, a heartbeat of the relationship. So,
and it's such an easy way to actually like have a minute to recap what you did learn from an experience, a trip, a hard week, a sick bout, like whatever it is. Because a lot of times we just keep going through life, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we went on that trip. Oh, we went through that sickness. Oh, we had this
like when's
obstacle.
the last time you stopped to ask
talk about it.
Your spouse, what was hard for you this week? What brought you joy this week? 2 little, simple, easy touch points, but like stack that up over 52 weeks. You have 52 touch points that have built the reality for your spouse's life, and you know about them. So you now have a window, much bigger window into their purview or their experience of life that you can use to love them, help them, aid them, partner with them, instead of either a smaller window or only a big window in one area that you're focusing on. But the great thing about the Marriage Journal is it spans the entire experience of the human that you're living with.
And I would really, I know Valentine's Day is coming up. Like, if you guys have never tried the Marriage Journal and you've heard of us talk about it, if you've been following us for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever, you've never tried the Marriage Journal, or maybe you just got married,
I promise you.
Just try it. Like, let this be the time where you actually try it. Or maybe you picked it up and you did 2 weeks and it's somewhere
never
in
gave
a
it a good
bookshelf.
go.
Go find it and put a bow on it and give it to your spouse, the one that you have on the bookshelf, and say is a re-invitation to try it. Like, it is seriously, it could be like one of the most life-changing things for your marriage this year.
Well, and it has been that
so
for thousands of couples. Like the reviews, it's amazing.
Anyways, we can get off that.
Yeah, we'll get off that.
I do think like it's a timely time of year to start, and with Valentine's Day, it'd be such an easy, like, just little.
Available at beating50%.com.
Yeah.
beating50%.com. Oh, I thought it was easily on here.
Anyways, babe, I do want to ask you, because I feel like when we get in like go mode of like thing to thing to thing to thing, I'm kind of like tend to be the keeper of the schedule. So I like know what's coming more than you do because I'm the bigger. You have to visually look at the calendar and see it.
Doesn't exist until I see it. And
so, but I feel like I'm just curious, like what, when we go on trips like this and it's harder for you to see like exactly what's coming. Like, what's the hardest part about that for you? Or like, what was the hardest part about this trip for you?
Well, I feel like, I don't know if there was it was just an overall difficult thing to accomplish. But in the same way a workout is difficult, like the entire workout's hard when you're trying to do the thing, but like there wasn't really a specific thing I would say
there wasn't.
No, like I usually manage the tickets and the app, and I've got my own bag regime, whatever the word is, regimen that I do. So yeah, there
was nothing that you felt like, oh, this went against my expectations.
I don't think so, actually. What were you expecting my answer to be?
No, I didn't. Genuinely didn't have any expectations. I just was curious if there was like, because I think I can often just like see how it's going to unravel, and then like sometimes not fully lay that out for you, or you don't even operate in a way where you want it to be fully laid out for you that far in advance. Like you kind of don't.
Yeah, one thing I think
check out if I do it too much.
One thing we could do better at is our Google Calendar, like just getting things laid out well in the Google Calendar. Actually, the better thing would be to check the Google Calendar.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I check the Google Calendar.
I don't know. Half my stuff doesn't show up on yours. Half your stuff doesn't show up on mine. We gotta like figure out those problems. Those are like simple problems. Like we need to have the family calendar. Like Ember is like getting to the age where she's gonna want to like see the family calendar. I feel like she's always asking,
totally,
what's next? What's tomorrow? Anyways, that was good.
Yeah, it was, on the whole though, it was an awesome trip. And I will say, if you are just like a couple things, because we did get a lot of like skiing questions and stuff, like ski trip aside, if you want to teach your kids to ski, some of the most helpful things I would say to do, and obviously like we're still teaching our kids to ski, so like I am no expert, but just having grown up in a ski family and being in that world a long time, go to a place where it is not crowded and they have a magic carpet or a bunny chair or some super simple, like not crowded, where it's not like the rest of the mountain is skiing there. Go on a sunny day, like not a stormy day, where it's going to be pleasant for them and fun. Bring lots of treats and snacks in your bag or in your pockets or whatever that you can give to them after each run or before each run or on the chairlift, and make it about fun and not teaching them. Like make it about just exposure and fun. Yeah. And I do think that because we did that with Bodhi and Ember, every time we've taken them up, like Ember maybe a little bit more teaching now the past year, but only really last year. But before that, it was like exposure, get your skis on, go on the magic carpet, here's some treats, fun. Like, okay, you done? We'll be done. Let's go have hot chocolate. You know what I mean? Like not pushing it.
And like, for example,
it is so much effort to do that. So it feels like, you feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta take them on more runs. I gotta teach them
one
something
example
else.
though.
Yeah,
like,
no, go.
Put their skis are on, but like first trip down the mountain, they're in my arms, in your arms. Like this is what I did with Bodhi the other day, and I'm just cruising down with him, and like so they're experiencing what it's going to be like to know how to ski, and it's fun, and they're going fast, and then the difficulty makes kind of more sense to them. Right? When they're trying to stand up with these big clunky things, but they're like, but I remember going fast, or whatever.
Totally. No, yeah. I think that's just great.
Yeah, detail.
No, but yeah, and I will say, like, it was one of the biggest payoffs for me of this entire trip. Like, it was very expensive to put our kids in ski school for 3 days. Like, that was not something that we decided to do lightly. However, it was the only way that Jeremy and I were going to be able to ski at all. And
we said like if we can just do this expense and knowing it's a great ski school and accelerate 3 years of their abilities, which
literally,
like, it's just worth it. So in our world, we said this is worth it. So let's do it.
And I will say, like, we wouldn't just put our kids in like ski school. I didn't know how it was gonna go. We've never dropped Radley off at basically like daycare, right? Never have dropped Bradley off at a daycare before. I didn't know how he's never been to preschool or anything like that. I didn't know how it would go. So, going into it, I'm thinking like, okay, the kids are going to do ski school all day. I didn't know how Bodhi would respond to it either. Like being with a stranger coach and stranger kids from all over the country all day with no communication to mom, no seeing mom, nothing, skiing all over the mountain in a new place, doing a new thing. I mean, it's big, right? For them, like they were brave. Bodhi and Ember had no problem and they were really brave, but we didn't know how it was going to go. We didn't know that it was going to be that. And Radley, I had no idea if he would be like, yeah, let me be dropped off with a bunch of these strangers in this play place. And then after the first, on the first day, he doesn't know. But on the second day, I was like, is he going to want to go back? Is he going to? We very much were like, should we not send Radley for the next day?
Well, no, we said, should we cancel? What if he doesn't want to go? It's a lot of money. Should we cancel the third day?
Yeah.
To save the cost.
Right.
But I'm glad we didn't.
And he loved it. But it's just kind of like one of those things where I feel like parenting is so much like you just adapt to the things as they come, and you are constantly reading your kids to see what's best for them. And I think a lot of times, like when you're watching social media or you're seeing a family do something a certain way, you can in your head think like, oh, they planned it. Like Jeremy and Audrey are maybe you're not thinking this, but maybe you are. Like Jeremy and Audrey, how did they plan that? How did they think to do all of those things the way that they did them? And like, I want to know exactly how to do what they did, right? We couldn't tell you that before we went on this trip. you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there is no, it's like I say this with homeschool all the time. Nobody knows what they're doing with homeschool. You're constantly changing and figuring out new things and reading your kid and what's best for them and what's best for you and what you like teaching them and all of that. The adaptability thing is like so big. And so, but I think social media can make it so easy to like watch somebody else's life and say like, wow, they're doing all of that really well. And you can think that like it's all pre-orchestrated, that they're pre-orchestrating that and that everything they're doing is super intentional.
Yeah.
And while we're intentional people, like it's not that way. It's not right?
That way.
Like we went in this trip loosely thinking like this is what we're gonna do, but every hour we're like it could drastically change and we're just adapt. And so in hindsight, it's easy to piece it together and say like, this is what we did, you know, and like this is how it went. But
it's the classic like
it's not as premeditated.
Even with like silly trips like this on social media, it's like you're seeing, you know, the $10 million company overnight when it was really a 10-year project. They say every company, you know, every $1 million company was built over 10 years. But people tend to think like, how did you do that? You know, it's like, well, weekly communication sessions called the marriage journal. You know, like all of these little things that add up to this like adaptable, dynamic ability to handle a really difficult thing like a ski trip with 4 kids 7 and under. It's funny.
Yeah, totally.
But
that makes sense what I was saying.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like
what you're saying is
I just think that happens.
What you're saying is people want a plan, and on social media a lot of times people see the end result if it went well,
right?
But there is no plan, and there's just
you
got to just be the right build the qualities that are able to do something like that.
Yeah, and
that's kind of what you're saying.
What you're saying about the plan thing, like I think it's easy for people on social media or talking heads like you and me or podcasters or influencers, creators, whatever, to come back after a trip like that and
sell the plan.
Yes, and sell the plan. But they didn't know what the plan was going in. Like nobody freaking knows what they're doing. Like
nobody knows what they're doing.
And so like the plan is let's communicate and be married and like, you know, build.
What does this go back to, babe? Freaking love letter life. You want to find the right person, be the right person. It's like we're so focused on, you know, this thing out there, whereas like that's totally attainable if this is corrected.
Right.
The journey is inward. It always is. Inward and upward. I shall stop before I go on a crazy tangent.
No, it's good. Everyone loves your tangents. Let's hear them. Let's hear one.
No, not now.
What's your best tangent now?
Not right now.
Wrap up the podcast.
I'm exhausted. Not now.
Anyways, it was a great trip. We're super, super grateful that we were able to even do it. Obviously, like, you know, a huge blessing to be able to go on a trip like that. To be able to afford a trip like that. And for our kids, we've got 2 little shredders now. Bodie and Ember are like cruising down the mountain. We have no idea what Radley.
Properly known as Groms.
Yeah, right. For those of you that don't know, we call our kids Groms or Grommets.
Yeah, they don't need to know.
But yeah, they do need to know. Because everyone's always like, what is a Grom? Anyways, a Grom is like a ski slang term for like a kid skier, surfer, snowboarder, skater.
A little kid that participates in extreme sport.
But we are very curious to see.
Rad.
I'm very curious to see.
Rad. Oh yeah, he's gonna be nuts.
Because we never got to see. We could spy on Bodie and Ember.
He's gonna be
found
just
them
straight downhill.
We never saw Rad.
Before we go, it would be so helpful if you've tried the marriage journal and you want to leave a review. It's just that's how people know it works. Same with Connect cards. If you've tried Connect cards and you love it, because they're starting to go out, leave a review because there aren't very many yet. It's a brand new product, and it would be super helpful for people to see how fun these are. Because again, we made these because we snuck away to Palm Springs last year, ended up playing a game similar, questions we downloaded off the internet or whatever, for like 4 hours, and we're like, we have to make this game but better, and so we made it. It's called Connect Cards, also available at beating50%.com. Leave a review if you tried them. It helps the product, helps us, and ultimately it helps the mission, which is healthy relationships, connect, communicate, and grow in love. Let's do that. Cheers.
And they aren't available right now, but if you want to know when you can get them, when they will be back in stock, which will be soon, you can go to beating50%.com. There's a place where you can put in your email so you know when they're back in stock, so you can be one of the first to grab one. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, anything else, babe?
That's it. That's good.
You weren't going to deep dive on any of your...
I need.
You didn't want to even talk about like the new president.
Oh no. Yeah. It's a new
new
era.
world
It's a new era for America. And one thing real quick I'll say about that is like, we are so quick. Everyone's so quick to point out nobody's perfect and there's no perfect anything and nobody knows what they're doing, like we just said. And I think that there's some massive changes that need to happen in America right now, and with our health and the government and our taxes. And it's like, there's so many people that like want to give more of their money to the government and they pretend that they're spending our money wisely. And meanwhile, Louisiana and LA is burning and people are getting $750 checks, but then we're sending literally billions of unmarked money overseas with no checks and balances. It's like, that's my money. That's our money. Let's just pump the brakes and let's reassess the government. So I think I'm excited. I think there's some good things happening that could happen. Now, humans always have a bend to go south. And so we'll see. But I'm hopeful personally. I think there's two major issues that I was concerned about, and that is our health. The downside of capitalism has infiltrated almost every single aspect of America, and it's compromised our health to an nth degree that we don't even know about yet. And so let's pump the brakes on that and let's start to reassess why are 7 out of 10 chemicals in our cereal banned in Europe. What's the deal here? Why does our ketchup have ingredients I can't pronounce? And
no more red dye.
And there's 3 or 4 ingredients in this country. It's let's just check this out a little bit. And then also the Doge system, combing through the government and trying to figure out why. What is it? There's 400 and something agencies. There's more agencies than years our country has been established. Why? And why are our taxes going towards that? And then where is it all going? So let's just comb that as well and see. So I'm excited for a few things, but there's also things I'm not excited about. And so people tend to throw you into categories, and it's such a cancer of the mind when you divide the world up in categories. When you practice dualism, which would be the knowledge of good and evil operating system, which is the fall, when you participate into that, the easy thing to do is categorize people and say, oh my goodness, he's excited that there might be people checking out health, but did you know that yes, I do, but and I'm concerned about everything, but I'm also, I think there's some good things happening as well. So we will see. Yeah. We will see. But it's a new era. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I got obviously a lot more to say on it, but I'll leave it at that.
All right. Till next week. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you. These are the days.
These are the days.